On today's DNVR Broncos show, we're going to talk about who is the most likely first-round pick for the Broncos next year. Looking ahead on this show, could it be Travis Hunter? Could it be an offensive lineman? Defensive side? What are the odds that it's a quarterback in back-to-back years? We're breaking it all down, starting right now. We back on the DNVR Broncos podcast. The countdown has begun, Henry. It is July. That means training camp starts this month. We're just 3 weeks away from the Denver Broncos reporting for training camp, and likely just a couple of days on top of 3 weeks of being away from the Broncos actually starting training camp. Football is almost here, and the DNVR Broncos podcast is absolutely here, live in the Toyota Lounge, which is driven by your local Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR, here inside the DNVR Bar. I've got my man Henry Chisholm and Alyssa behind the camera. How you doing, Hank?
I'm good. Also, I totally missed. Apparently, Jonathan Drouin signed back with the Avs like 10 minutes ago.
Oh, I missed that.
I know, because we've just been
ball.
like sitting here. Yeah, my phone's been in my pocket. It's been crazy with free agency.
You know, I think the NHL or the NBA, but likely the NHL has really dropped the ball on this, or the puck on this, and not in a good way to like start the game.
Drop the gloves.
What? Yeah,
makes you
but then
want to
they've
drop
like
the gloves.
punched themselves in the face.
Oh wow!
Why are NBA and NHL free agency at the exact same time? One of them, likely the NHL, should push it back a week, so that they can have 100% of the spotlight. Instead, there's, so many NBA news just covering it all up.
They had the same thing with the draft, too.
It's so stupid.
It is. It is stupid. I wonder how much their fan bases cross over. Like, I bet for, I don't know. Hockey fans are weird. And I say that as, a hockey fan. But, 90% of them probably just don't even care about the NBA. It's still, a waste because I don't know. It's still good to get the exposure. ESPN's going to be talking more about, you can see it right there. We've got that on. They're talking about basketball. They're not talking about all this hockey stuff.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It's a bad idea. I don't know why it happens, but I guess it's because they're kind of on the same schedule.
Yes, but you could push it have the draft later this week and free agency next week.
It really doesn't seem like it'd be that hard for them to do.
And why I put the blame on the NHL is they are kind of like the younger sibling here.
They are.
And the smaller one, and so you have to change in order to get bigger things. You're not going to expect the bigger league to adjust to the smaller league. No, you have to adjust.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure the NHL used to be the bigger one, too. I'm pretty sure back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I can see if I can double check, but I'm pretty sure in the 90s, it was at the very least the same size. And then the NBA just took off, and the NHL kind of stayed in the same place.
When also didn't the NHL lockout really kill them in the mid 2000s?
And I think the salary cap also did. I think that they basically put the salary cap in too early. They should have kind of let it keep going, because that was, I guess, the early 2000s, I think. And if they had just let teams overspend and inflate salaries and inflate those guys would have kind of turned into superstars, and then you put the cap in.
Right.
It's also as a biased Avs fan who saw, I guess I wasn't really alive enough. I was alive, but not enough to know what was happening.
Not alive enough.
Yeah. I would have been 5 or something when all this happened. So, I mean, it seems the point is they really could have handled things better and let the superstars get paid before they
That's a very fair point.
held everybody down.
But when you're around a 5-year-old, or do you look at them and you're like, you're not alive enough for me to acknowledge you right now? I think you'd have a little bit of that.
I'm not
in
around
you,
many
actually.
5-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, I just don't know what to do. Just stay away, I think. Also, that reminded me. So I was just walking down the hallway of the gym this morning, and
Flex.
this really nice. Oh, I can flex now after going down. Yeah, after. So I was walking. There's this lady, seemed nice. Had these 2 dogs. And it's like a narrow hallway, so there's nothing she can do. But one of the dogs just like licked my leg as I walked by. I was like, this is awful.
Wow.
That's not.
You don't even like dog licks? Like,
No.
I understand not wanting the responsibility, but you can't even handle a dog lick?
I had forgotten about that because it was in my like early morning deluded phase. But
Deluded?
as in like delusional
phase. Yeah, I can tell you're still in that right now.
Maybe I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of those things where I was like, I wonder if there are people who like it. Like they're like, I see, oh, nice dog. Oh, it licked me. That's nice.
Yeah, everyone,
crazy.
Henry. Maybe like I can understand if people don't want it on their face. I get that,
Okay.
but everyone likes it on their leg.
But I was just going to the gym. I was like, oh, please. Like, I really hope this leg doesn't start itching. I've just got to get through like an hour.
It's a dog.
I know, but like when you're allergic, that's what you think. It's like, I'm going to sit on this bike or like
Are you allergic
pick up this heavy
to
thing.
a dog?
Oh, yeah.
No, you're not.
Dogs and cats, yeah. No, that's why
You actually are.
oh, yeah.
Why didn't you say this like months and years ago when you've just been
I mean,
hating on dogs and cats?
that's just the
if
tip
you
of the
say you're
iceberg.
allergic, it really helps your case.
I still have this thing where, sometimes you're cold and you want to like pull a blanket over your head.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up with like cats and dogs. And whenever I do that, I just get like all itchy because like blankets, they just catch all the stuff. And so I realized like a week ago, I was just sitting on the couch and I was like sitting in this blanket. I was like, okay, this is really cold in here. Like I just for a second need to pull this over my head just to like warm up. I have my phone. I'll be entertained. And like, I have like this little hitch where I'm like, is it worth getting all itchy? And you're like, that's it. Don't worry. We don't have any animals here. It's
You
going to
thought
be
you were
fine.
going to suffocate being under there with all the pollen,
Yeah.
dandruff.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you like our Canes dog so much then. You always want it on set.
Oh, yeah. Can we...
It's
no,
not no,
visible.
It's hidden.
When we have the 3 chairs, you see it's right back here. Yeah. It is what it is.
We got some congratulations to hand out, and Henry, one of them is to you. I'm gonna say that last. I want to give a congratulations. I was at a wedding in Mexico this weekend, and one of my friends, Max, watches this show. So congratulations to Max and Kayla on getting married.
It looked like a good wedding
on the beach. Yeah,
yes.
I mean a beach wedding. In Mexico and all inclusive, you can't beat that. So congratulations. Speaking of weddings, Zach Wilson is going to get married.
That's right.
He just got engaged this week on the Positano coast, I believe. Or no, the Positano city.
That's gotta be Italy.
In the Amalfi coast in Italy.
Yeah.
Impressive,
Positano,
Henry. So Zach Wilson, sorry to all the moms out there. He's off the market now. And then a final congratulations to Henry, who's using his first vacation days.
Yes, I am.
Later this week? Is that it?
Yes. Wednesday and Friday.
Wow.
Yep.
Because we get Thursday off
We
for
do.
the 4th
We do.
of July. So congratulations
I know.
on that big accomplishment for you, Henry.
I think so. I hadn't even like really looked at the vacation day policy even. So I got in there to like file them, and I was like, so it looks like we get like a certain number that like roll over. I still am just going to like roll over the full number if I didn't dig too deep, but like, yeah.
I need to look into that policy. I might just drain it later in the next few weeks.
That's
then.
what I was thinking. Is like there's gonna be no time to do this. It's like I think I'm gonna get up there for the Missouri State Montana game, August 31st, which is like a tough scheduling thing because NDSU's here Thursday, but that kind of like saves it when they play CU, and so I can go Friday probably go watch that game. But that's gonna be a weird game because Missouri State's not that good, but they're transitioning to FBS, so they get like more scholarships. I don't know. First game since the national championship, so it'll be fun.
Hey,
Which they
there you
lost,
go.
but it'll be like
And
good
that's
vibes.
still another big flex.
Yeah.
I mean, you were the one to bring the flex down by saying they still lost, but
They did lose.
Man, and like honestly, the covering a team the way you and I do, especially the Broncos, you think there's like, okay, there's only 5
Yeah.
months of the year where it's the season that you can't really take off, and we still could. It's not like DNVR doesn't allow us, but we just want to be as
doesn't
committed
work.
to this beat as possible. But then no, it's not just those 5 months, because then maybe if the Broncos become stable enough, and that would be good
Yeah.
news for everyone. Then January, well, no,
Yeah.
January would be busy.
Hopefully
February,
the entire month, not just the first.
exactly.
Well,
the
so you
first
go
half
through,
of February would be busy.
yeah. So like the season ends like January 10th or 12th or something.
Yep.
And then for like that week after, there's like the press conference and like there's always like these wrap up things that take up at least another week, and sometimes it's like a week and a half.
Yep.
And then on the podcast, there's things to talk about for like a few more days.
Yep. And then, I mean, once February's over.
Well,
Then it's the combine.
Because we do the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So like the first 2 weeks of February are going to be like chaotic, like planning everything, then doing everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then free agency.
Yeah.
And then
Which
the
then
draft.
you preview before free agency even starts. So all March is gone.
Yep. And then there's OTAs. And
Same thing with the draft.
Like there are for sure like days we could take off. There's probably a week here and there that if we wanted to, we could, but like this 5 to 6 week window in the summer is really the time where it's just like totally open. That's when players are literally not allowed contact with the organization. So there's never, well, unless it changes with some rumblings that it might change next year. But in this part, there's nothing that we would ever miss. So that's kind of when like you'll see Todd, me, Henry take some more time off. But love being back and talking ball. Okay, so Henry, we are going to talk about who is the most likely player for the Broncos to draft this year. And I think the best way to do this is to first start with what's the most likely position the Broncos are going to need heading in to next year's draft. And I think on the surface, there's a couple of obvious ones. And so in the Toyota chat, I want you to think, which position do you think is the biggest need for the Broncos next year, entering April's draft? But I got to give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota when I let everyone think of that in the Toyota chat, because if you need any sort of car, a truck, an SUV, even sports cars, and of course in the hybrid game as well, Toyota has got you. In fact, you can pretty much mix all of those together, and it gets you the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. It drives like a sports car, but of course is a big old truck. That's the hybrid. It's got the iForce Max power with it too, and Toyota has 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from. And of course, you can get the RAV4 Grand Highlander, the Tacoma, like I said earlier, the Tundra, the Land Cruiser. There's so many different cars. Make sure to check out the new iconic 2024 Land Cruiser, which just dropped this spring. Toyota, the official car of the NFL, or the official automotive partner of the NFL, an official vehicle of DNVR. And if you want a Toyota, check them out at your local front range Toyota stores near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota Eastern Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL and the official vehicle of DNVR.
Also, shout out to Bet365, whom hopefully you have. Sorry,
I don't think anyone would have picked up on that, Hank. I think you're okay.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. It's been stuck in my mind, actually.
Whom?
Yeah, I actually texted the word whom. I don't think my girlfriend texted me back, actually.
Jeez.
Yes, to whom are you listening? But yeah, so Bet365, hopefully listen to my advice and stop betting on the Rockies, because they did turn bad again. What was it, 5 in a row they lost? 6 in a row, something like that. Until yesterday, when I broke my own rule because I was like, I'm just sitting at home, like going to the gym. I'm watching the game there. Actually, great gym day, because I was like, oh, I'll go down there, watch the second half of the Rockies game from the exercise bike.
Yeah.
Good plan.
It's a great idea.
14-inning game. Longest in the majors this year. So I just kept pedaling and
bike?
pedaling and pedaling. Yeah.
Wow.
No, it was pretty crazy. But they won. And so there were a whole bunch of crazy plays. But yeah, they didn't get swept by the White Sox, which is big news. And if you, like me, were at Bet365, you would have made a decent amount of money, because Bet365 really thought they were going to get swept. A lot of fun stuff to bet on right now, especially all the soccer. They've got awesome boosts every day. Yesterday's didn't hit, but I think like 2 or 3 of the ones before consecutively all hit. I'm not sure what the boost is tonight, but I'm sure they'll have some awesome stuff for this U.S. soccer game. Do you know who they play?
U.S. soccer?
Yeah.
Nope.
All I
Didn't
know
even
is
know they were playing.
They lost to the Panamanians.
The Pandemanians?
Panamanians.
Panamanians.
Yeah.
Pandemanians would be like a cool nickname, though.
Yeah, I think the Panamaniacs would be good.
That would be good.
That'd be good. But that's not the point. Point is, make some good bets. DNVR365 is an awesome code because it gets you a bet and get offer. You can place a bet of $5 or more, get $150 in bonus bets, or you can get a first bet safety net offer where you place a bet up to $2,000. If that qualifying bet loses, receive a match refund and bonus bets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Shout out to the Toyota chat, which is dropping in a lot of good answers to the question. And speaking of the Toyota chat, if you are listening over on Twitter /X, make sure to jump over to YouTube. It helps us out. Plus, it allows you guys to comment and interact with us better, easier. The stream is better as well. And so I want to read a couple of these answers coming in on the Twitter chat. Right there is perfect, Alyssa. Jose says, I asked the question, which positions do the Broncos need the most for next year's draft? And David Freese said they need a superstar receiver. Grant said defensive and offensive line. Jose said tight end, left tackle, edge. And then David also said the whole team needs a lot of work. And Jose chimed in and said quarterback if Bo Nix face plants, running back if Javonte is not the same or is good but leaves, wide receiver if Mims doesn't step up, tight end unless we see a miracle, left tackle if Bowles walks, center if no one steps up, and right tackle if they move on from McGlinchey. So these responses kind of tell me like, there could be a lot of positions of dire need.
And I don't think anybody said linebacker, which I would definitely put on that list.
Inside or outside? Or both?
Both, yeah.
Both.
Probably inside for sure, but outside, I mean, two of those guys aren't under contract for next year.
Right.
So,
I mean, if you look across this entire team, outside of like the rookies and the young guys that are on rookie deals, you have Ben Powers under contract next year. You have Mike McGlinchey under contract next year. And that is it across the offensive line, which are two big pieces, but you don't have really a notable starting center under contract for next year as it sits right now. Quinn Meinerz is a free agent after this season. Garrett Bowles is a free agent after this season. So just right there, you're losing some big pieces. Now, obviously, they're probably not just going to let all of these guys walk. Tight end, Troutman signed a 1-year deal, I believe. Dulcich under that rookie contract.
Does he have 2 years left? He must.
Who?
Dulcich.
Yep. 2 years left, including this year, so one more a year. Running back, Javonte, this is his
third year,
so he'll have one more year, obviously.
No, this is fourth year, sorry.
Yeah, this is his
contract
fourth year. You're right. So Javonte not under the roster. And then to just round out the offensive side of the ball, Courtland Sutton is under contract in 2025 as well. And I think really
no guarantees.
Josh Reynolds is, but no guarantees really for Josh Reynolds either. And obviously we've talked about that situation a lot, but then the young guys. So the receiver group actually might be the most stable position entering next year's draft. But of course, that's not getting into the nitty gritty of like, well, Courtland won a contract this year. He's really going to want one next year. Do you move on from Josh Reynolds if he just underperforms a little bit this year to save money? So many. And then that just kind of shows it's pretty much the same on the defensive side of the ball. You're like, well, I like Alex Singleton and maybe Jonas Griffith can become something. But next year, neither of those guys are under contract anymore.
Yeah. The only place I think that you're actually set is quarterback. And that's the one spot.
Are you set there?
I think so, because nobody takes quarterbacks in back-to-back years. It's happened.
The Arizona Cardinals.
Yep, it happened in 1989. Cowboys took Troy Aikman, and then actually in the supplemental draft, they took another quarterback, which meant they had to forfeit the next year's first-round pick. So you can count that if you want.
Wait, who was that quarterback that they took?
Steve Walsh. They went with Aikman. I'm not sure if you heard. Yeah.
Wow.
I think they probably regret that. They did that with the Colts did that. They took Art Schlichter in 1982, and a year after took John Elway. But
oh man,
yeah, you'll remember what happened there.
Schlichter.
Yeah, they did not actually keep Elway. They traded him. And then if you go way back, the 49ers did it in 56 and 57. The Washington actually took them in 59, 60, and 61. And the Rams did 62, 63, 64. But that was a very different game
62,
back then.
63, and 64?
Yeah. And then, of course, the Cardinals did it with Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray. So unless something historic happens, the Broncos aren't taking a quarterback in the first round next year. If they do, then in like 60 years, people will be looking back and saying like, well, the Broncos did it, so you never know. Yeah. So I'm confident in saying like it's not going to happen.
That's fair. So, but because we're going down this road, let's just continue down it right now.
Yep.
What would have to happen for the Broncos to take a quarterback? Because, Henry, you say, like, it's got to be extenuating circumstances, and you are right. And history backs you up with that. But on the flip side, just to be contrarian, I don't think this is going to happen. But what was it? Pro Football Focus had the Broncos roster graded as 32nd out of 32nd, dead last in the entire NFL heading into this year. And I have to imagine they think Bo Nix is going to play a lot of the season. So let's say Vegas has the win total over-under for the Broncos as the third worst in the NFL. So there's some people very down on this Broncos team. I'm not nearly as down. Sean Payton, the worst he's ever been is 7-9 as a head coach. I think that he at least gets to 7 wins this year, so I do not see this situation unfolding. But there's some people outside of Colorado that do see a situation where the Broncos could have top 3 pick in next year's draft.
Yeah.
If it is a top 3 pick, is quarterback considered? Is that an opportunity where you see history happening again?
I think it'd have to be number 1. I think that there would have to be somebody so good that you just can't pass him up. Because, I mean, it's probably a pretty safe bet that a quarterback's going number 1. And I don't think the Broncos are going to be deciding to bring in a new quarterback who's the third best in the class. It would have to be somebody who's so good that you make a move, which is what happened with the Cardinals.
That's fair.
When Kyler Murray was the number 1 overall pick, and they're like, well, this guy just won the Heisman. We can't sit here with Josh Rosen. But I also think that there isn't a clear number 1 next year. I think that if we were going into this year and there was a Caleb Williams or a Trevor Lawrence or an Andrew Luck, it's pretty rare that those guys, it's once every 2 or 3 years you get one of those guys, then you would say like, yes, you have to do it. But when you look at who the top quarterbacks are going to be, I mean, Shedeur Sanders could have been in the draft this year. Quinn Ewers could be the first quarterback off the board. He could have been in the draft this year.
Yeah.
Like, these are all guys who you've known for years and years ahead of time are going number 1 overall. You don't have, at least as of now, somebody who looks like that generational talent. And because of that, like, if for the Broncos to take quarterback, Bo Nix needs to be bad. They need to have the number 1 overall pick. And like, they need one of these guys to be so good that they just can't justify passing him up. And I guess there's a chance where they would trade the pick, though. They wouldn't draft the player and trade the pick and trade the player. Like,
what?
There's no world in which they're like John Elway, like the Colts did back in the day, and say like, we'll draft Shedeur Sanders because he has to go number 1 overall. They would just trade the first overall pick and not take it. So it would. There's almost no chance it happens.
And see, I disagree.
Really?
Again, don't think it's going to happen. But Henry, you threw out some names. You threw out, and I think there's kind of a big 3 to maybe 5 in this quarterback draft right now. You're looking at Carson Beck. I think he might be the number 1 overall pick, but Shedeur Sanders, I think, is right there as well. You mentioned Quinn Ewers, who's going to be in the conversation as a top pick in this draft. Jalen Milroe, do not be surprised if he has a massive season. I think he, last I saw, was like at the 7th best odds to be the number 1 overall pick in this draft. And then, oh my gosh, there's someone else that I was absolutely thinking of. Who would it be? Why can't
Quinn
I
Ewers?
think?
You say that?
No, I said Quinn. Anyways, I think there's like 5 guys that are already kind of being talked about now, and I really think that there's like a big 2 or 3 with Carson Beck, with Shedeur Sanders, maybe Quinn Ewers, in terms of like they're already being talked about as being top dogs.
Yeah.
What happens when the season ends? Quarterbacks value just skyrockets. Just goes through the roof. So I'd be surprised if, this year we're saying it is wild that 6 quarterbacks went in the top 12 picks. We might be talking about 5 quarterbacks going in the top 10 picks next year. What we're probably talking about is 3 quarterbacks going in the top 5. And then maybe there's a drop off and there's only 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round. But quarterbacks price and value is only going to skyrocket. So the fact that there's already a couple of names now and we're 9 months away from the draft just shows me that I think it's going to just skyrocket. So for the Broncos to take a quarterback, I think what has to happen is they have to have a top 3 pick. Obviously, the closer to number 1 you get, so if you're 2 or you're 1, it's even more likely to take a quarterback. And Bo Nix has to be a big reason why they have a top 3 pick or a top 2 pick. Let's say the Broncos start like 0-10, and then Bo Nix comes in, and that was with Bo Nix on the bench, and then Bo Nix comes in. First off, there'd be a lot of coaching malpractice if that's the case, if they're 0-10 and Bo Nix still hasn't started. But then he comes in and goes, 3-4 down the stretch, and the Broncos finished 3-14, but Bo won 3 more games than any quarterback was able to with the Broncos in the first 10. Then no, you probably saw enough from Bo where you feel comfortable. Then you're trading that pick for a massive haul. Then you're drafting another top player at the non-quarterback position there. It would have to be, Bo starts 13, 14 or more games and is just really bad and really doesn't show progress. I don't think this is going to be the case. I just need to keep saying that, but I do think that's how it happens. And then Sean gets one more shot. Ownership says, Sean, we're not going to put Russ on you, but we're going to put Bo on you. And you get one more shot at this quarterback thing, and you better do it now because you have a top 3 pick.
Yeah. I almost think Bo Nix has to, do something off the field. He might not even need to be, suspended or something, or have, we'll knock on wood for all of this, but, some serious injury where you're like, that might be it, but really knocking on wood for that. It's almost never happened before. If Quinn Ewers was that good, why was he being mocked in the 2nd and 3rd round and then deciding to go back to school? And I think,
let me throw it this way. If Quinn Ewers wasn't that good, why isn't the GOAT Arch Manning playing right now?
True. Well, I mean, it is, I don't know. There just isn't somebody who is that guy. I think that when you look at this year, compare it to last year, I mean, Quinn Ewers or Shedeur Sanders or Carson Beck, I don't think any of them is a Drake May in this situation. As of where Drake May was last year, I think that, there certainly is no Caleb Williams, but I don't even think that there's a Drake May type. And they're pretty close. They're right in there. I just don't think that there's anybody where you just say, we've got to bail on our plan. I think you'd be better off, trading that pick, like the Bears did. Even though they kind of knew, Justin Fields wasn't, he wasn't quite what you had hoped. You're still holding out some hope, but you trade the pick to the Panthers and say, we'll do it next year if we have to. It would just take so much to do a thing that's really only happened once. Because again, the 2 other examples are.
Sure. Well, that's totally fair.
I just can't see it.
And Sean says you don't want to get on the NFL train because the
True.
NFL train is just kind of it's the narrative that goes on. And he thought that narrative was happening with J.J. McCarthy. He hasn't said that publicly, but it's pretty clear to connect the dots. And he said that's a dangerous path to get on, is just getting on the train and just going with it, wherever the narrative goes. But where the narrative always goes is quarterbacks' values just get inflated like crazy. And even the Broncos got on that narrative a little bit by saying, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
The 6th quarterback in the draft is still worthy of the 12th pick, and I'm not saying they're wrong about that, but that is just what is going to happen, in my opinion. So I totally see where you're coming from, but I think we both put it out there pretty well. Before we go to if it is a quarterback, what quarterback would it be? Let's talk about the other positions of need. Henry, when I say what's the number 1 position the Broncos will need going into the draft next year, what is it? The number 1 position. And when you think about it, let me give a shout out to our friends over at Infinity Park. We are 69 days away. Nice. From the Broncos taking the field in week 1. But if you want to get in on some other sporting action when it's really a dry time in Denver right now for sports outside of the Rockies. We've also got the American Raptors, and you can check out our friends over at Infinity Park pretty much every single weekend to get some awesome action going on. It's a really cool venue. It's a really cool place, and you get to see the American Raptors rugby team, Colorado's only professional rugby team. They're back, and you can catch their games on ESPN Plus. And what's even better is we've got you covered on the media end. Our guy Colton Strickler has a weekly DNVR Rugby podcast. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure to follow him at Colton Strickler on Twitter. And then, of course, over at DNVR_rugby to keep up with the latest news. And you want to save the date and come out to Infinity Park in Glendale, Colorado for movie night Monday, July 8th, featuring Trolls Band Together. Gates open at 6 p.m. and the movie starts at 7 p.m. Moviegoers are encouraged to pack their own chairs, blankets, and pack coolers with their favorite snacks. Please leave grills and glass containers at home. For those not bringing food, on-site food trucks will offer delicious options for purchase. All movie nights in 2024 are free to attend. Don't miss out on this fun, family-friendly event at Infinity Park. I've actually been to Infinity Park to see a couple of July 4th fireworks. So I don't know if they're doing that this year, but I know it's a great venue for like outdoor things at night during the summer. So that sounds like a blast.
Yeah, it does. Also, BetterHelp. BetterHelp can help you if you're going through tough times. I was going to make some like firework joke, but there really is nothing that fits.
No.
At all.
Not really.
No, nothing at all.
I mean, there's only one thing that connects with the NFL that I could think about that. But
yeah. Doesn't connect to his hand anymore.
Wow.
Shout out JPP. Yeah, BetterHelp is an awesome business. They can help you. There's a whole bunch of perks when you choose BetterHelp. So what they are, they connect you with the therapist, and the way it works is you say what you're dealing with, and they don't just give you anybody. They try to find somebody who fits what you're going through, because they've got a whole bunch of people who specialize in a whole bunch of different areas. So if you're trying to learn positive coping skills or how to set boundaries, power yourself to be the best version of yourself, it isn't just for if you've gone through major trauma, but if you just want somebody to help you to talk through things, they have a whole bunch of people on staff who can help you out. You fill out a questionnaire, you get matched with somebody, and if you don't like who they matched you with, you can switch at any time for no additional charge. It's all entirely online. It's designed to be convenient. It's flexible, suited to your schedule. It's very obviously discreet because it is just online. But it's just good for people to sometimes reevaluate, and they're really good at helping people go through those sorts of things. So if you're trying to become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not, you can visit betterhelp.com/DNVR today, and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/DNVR.
all right, Henry. So what is the biggest position of need you think the Broncos will have heading into the draft next year?
It's really tough. I mean, like maybe left tackle, but that's just like a 50-50. Whether you keep Garrett Bowles or not. Because, I mean, we were talking about the free agency in the NBA and NHL before. They do that after the draft. So they do the draft first, see what they get, and then go free agent. With this, you're doing the free agency first, so that could change some things. But I think you could take the 50-50 that's left tackle, or you could just say some sort of playmaker. Because regardless of what they do in free agency or re-signing people, like they just, I don't know. Like you said, like they'll bring back all their receivers. They also have, by some rankings, the 30th best receiver group in the NFL. So do you still might want to add to that.
Henry, we did not talk about this before the show.
Yeah.
You nailed it, though. I completely agree with you on that. And to me, if you have... What is Garrett Bowles? How would you classify him as a left tackle?
Certainly top 15, and depending on the penalty of luck, maybe top 10 any given year.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
If you have that is so tough to just let walk. Now, if Garrett wants a 5-year, $100 million contract, and it's like the length of the contract just scares you off because he's in his mid-30s now, okay, I get that. I don't think the Broncos are going to let Garrett Bowles walk. I think they'll get something done with him before free agency opens next year, and I think it's going to be a deal where we look and we say, damn, Garrett took a bit of a discount to stay in Denver, but he got a lot of guarantees to do it. So I think we're going to say that's a win-win deal for both sides of the ball. Unless the only reason they let him go is if Sean just says, I want a top 5 tackle in the NFL, and you can probably get that in this year's draft, especially if you have a top 10 pick. You can probably get an elite tackle in this draft. It's looking to be a really good tackle class. I just don't think they're going to go that way. So then I go, okay, what's the other position that's a top need? Playmaker, 100% it. It's probably not going to be from the running back position. Probably not going to be from the tight end position because Brock Bowers, he was the playmaker if you want to tackle or tight end this year. Obviously, the Broncos had to get quarterback, so they went that direction. So I look at wide receiver, and that's where I specifically find the playmaker is a wide receiver and a game-changing wide receiver. So I think those are the two most realistic spots, and I think that the wide receiver, because I do think they're going to keep Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey's under contract for next year, I do think that wide receiver is the number one need for the Broncos heading into next year's draft.
Yeah, there's a good chance. It just feels like the safe option because it's tough to see a world in which that isn't a good choice. Because even if Marvin Mims is everything you hope he is, even if Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick and Josh Reynolds are who you hope they are, like you're still going to want another guy. Like there'll still be room for another guy because you look around the league and the best teams have, for the most part, really good receivers. I mean, that's part of the reason people don't like the Bills as much this season. It's like, oh, you lost Stephon Diggs and you lost Gabe Davis, who I don't think is that good, but that's not the point. You need somebody who's going to go do things with the ball, especially when your quarterback is Bo Nix, because he's not a put a team on his back kind of quarterback. You just want to be able to get the ball to guys and let them go make plays. So it's a safe pick. Should we run through these real quick?
Yeah.
Let's fly through. So
let's do it.
Quarterback or halfback? Running back. People say running back now. More likely to be worthy of a first-round pick next year.
It's got to be quarterback, I think.
You think so?
I think so.
I go running back.
Okay, that's fair.
Just because I don't think you can go quarterback.
That's fair. I see that.
And I get like some people say never take a running back in the first round anyway, but I go running back.
The value to me is just what has it.
Definitely. But we were talking about this on the draft podcast. You've got Ollie Gordon coming back at Oklahoma State, who's going to be in the draft next year. I think 1,700 yards. Like, there's a chance that he's just a freak running back. And if those receivers do pop, if things go well for the Broncos, I see two scenarios. One where, like, things go well for the Broncos, they're picky in the 20s somehow. And you're like, oh, this guy could put him over the top because the defense worked out.
Yep.
That could make sense in that situation.
I can see that for sure.
Or if you're picking really high and you wind up, say you take, like, Travis Hunter to play cornerback top 3, all of a sudden, like, no running backs go in the first round. Top 3 the second round. But I said we're going to do this quick.
Yeah.
So let's just put running back in front of quarterback for now. But they're basically in the same spot. My notes app won't open. Wide receiver. Number one in front of those guys. Tight end.
How we would rank them?
More likely to be worthy of a first-round pick next year.
Is there that? There's not that Brock Bowers, so
Colston Loveland. He's not Brock Bowers, but Brock Bowers is rare. So Colston Loveland from Michigan, he obviously was very valuable last year. He was awesome when he was a freshman, similar to Brock Bowers in that way, in that, like, I remember watching him and thinking, like, ooh, Broncos got to get that guy, and being like, oh, wait, you got to wait 2 years before he's in the draft. Still probably not to that level. At the same time, though, doesn't have the same concerns about blocking that Brock Bowers has. And so as a pro prospect, maybe you could make the case that he could be just as valuable. But
I personally don't think so.
Fair enough.
I'd probably put him at the bottom of the list right now.
Oh, at the bottom. But just
the
position
Broncos,
in general, though.
The Broncos need at tight end.
Really?
No, I see what you're saying. You're saying
we're
talking about
most likely to be worthy of a first round pick, the position next year.
Yeah, I mean, the tight end position needs a lot of help if Dulcich can't stay healthy this year.
I'd probably put him after receiver, in front of running back after receiver.
That's fair.
Just because Like, it's a similar conversation with running back. Let's split tackle, guard, center.
All in one?
Let's say 3 separate.
Tackle. What are they doing with Bowles?
Yeah.
And because of how important it is, I'd probably go number 2 behind receiver.
I think it'd go either side.
Yep.
Let's go after because it might keep Bowles. Yeah, that makes sense. Guard.
They're going to sign Quinn, and they're paying Ben, so very, very low.
Running back, quarterback.
Probably guard bottom.
Guard bottom, cool.
That's what I
can
would
get
say.
behind that. Center.
Ooh, well, I mean, so we don't know who the starter is.
It's
so
another positional value, though.
Yeah, so I'd put it pretty high, though, because let's say the Broncos don't have a top 10 pick, then you can realistically draft a center at 13, at 18, at 22. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the position of need entering the draft. I could see it being pretty high.
See, I think center, positional value-wise, is on the same page as tight end and running back.
Okay, yeah, mid.
But then the need, it's a tough question. Like, I think it's probably more likely to be needed than running back, just given who you've got on the team. Tight end.
I would agree. It's less of a need than tight end. Tight end's need is actually
we'll put it in between
huge
them.
as of right now.
Put it in between them.
Yep.
Defense, edge rusher.
Who knows? That is maybe the biggest question mark on this team right now. You could eventually come away with 2 dudes from this season, or you could come away saying, we need 2 dudes, and we have to get, like, an alpha.
Yep. But you also have, like, position of value. Very easy to justify. I mean, people are like,
no, I think it's
5 guys.
I think it's high.
Wide receiver, tackle, then edge, or
probably. Yeah,
I could even justify higher. Okay, I'm down for that.
It's Sean Payton's team, so you kind of always have to think offense first, and so that's why I'm going to give the nod to those 2.
Defensive line,
not very high.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think. DJ
need.
Jones' contract will be up.
Yep. Zach Allen's still under contract. You got
Franklin
Malcolm
Myers.
Roach under contract.
Yep.
Franklin Myers under contract. I think you're good there.
Yep.
You hope to be great there, and they really could be great there.
Positional value would be the only argument, but I think it's somewhere in the tight end, center, running back tier. I think as a pure need, it's probably at the bottom.
I would say bottom.
Okay.
Yep.
Positional value doesn't change that.
Yep.
Okay. Linebacker. Low positional value, but there's going to be a need at some level at the very least.
I mean, potentially your whole room's starting over.
Yeah, potentially you could have 2 new starters.
But because of the value with a first-round pick,
but so would
can't
you like?
Be very high.
I agree. So you got current list: wide receiver, tackle, edge, tight end, center, running back, defensive line, quarterback, guard.
Maybe above running back.
Okay. Yep, it's somewhere in there. Now we go cornerback. This one is just a gamble. Do they find a guy or not?
I think it's going to end up being pretty low. I think they get good enough play from one of the other corners for you to be like, we got our lockdown nickel in Jaquan. Obviously, we've got Pat Surtain here, so we're good enough with that number 2.
Good enough to justify a first-round pick on a running back instead?
You hope.
You hope.
You hope.
Okay.
You hope. I don't know, though. I mean, easily, like you're saying, though, it could easily be flipped. We can go the other way.
I would go the other way. What about linebacker?
Wait, inside? Oh, wait.
Inside. If we just...
I'd say corner would probably be higher up.
What about center?
I'd say center would be higher up.
Okay. And then we found our spot. Now safety.
I don't think it's going to be a first-round need at all. I'd put it so low.
Yeah. Because you have enough guys. I guess what? Caden Stern's in a contract year.
Yep.
Which could be kind of an X factor if he winds up being the one of the starters.
Yep.
You hope JL Skinner shows something.
Yep.
PJ's under contract. Brandon Jones under contract.
Yep. This might be the very bottom of the list for me.
Especially
also because
value.
I think Sean, and I think not just positional value, I think Sean's positional value on safeties is very, very low. He really liked Justin Simmons. He just did not think Justin Simmons was worth $15 million a year.
And everybody agreed.
And everybody agreed. And then also on top of that, isn't like a first-round pick kind of the equivalent of paying a guy $15 million?
Yeah.
So if he wasn't willing to pay a safety that was worth $15 million, he's not going to turn around a year later and use first-round picks. That might be at the very, very bottom of the list for me.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Behind guard, It's a little bit of a gamble bringing back Quinn.
Maybe
but
a little bit above guard then, because guard is just not. But
safety? Quarterback?
I think quarterback, would be above it, personally.
You don't see many first-round safeties anyway.
Right.
Cool. So our list is receiver, tackle, edge, tight end, center, cornerback, linebacker, running back, defensive line, quarterback, safety, guard.
Go through it one more time, and I'm going to stop you.
Wide receiver.
Okay.
Tackle. Edge. Tight end. Center.
Stop. What's the next one?
Cornerback.
Yep. Right in between center and quarterback is where I think there's a big drop-off in terms of, like, okay, you can breathe a little bit. Like, there might be a need there, but it's not a massive one.
Okay.
Maybe you put linebacker above and put it in that first group, but just because of positional value, maybe not. But I think those first 5 positions are all like you're clenching this year, hoping that it's not an even bigger need than you think it is right now. But also, there's a chance that some of those concerns come down. If Marvin Mims comes out and looks like the explosive playmaker they drafted him to be, he has 1,100 yards and is a big play threat, and Cortland Sutton has his first 1,000-yard season since he was a Pro Bowler. There's certainly ways for it to bring it down, but I think that's kind of the big 5 that could all be very realistic first-round picks.
Yep. I'd throw cornerback in there too, just because, there's a chance that Jamari Mathis is who he was last year. Levi Wallace is who he was last year.
Yep.
Riley Moss isn't that guy.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you have a big hole at cornerback.
Yeah.
And you throw in the kicker that, like, I love Jaquan McMillan. It's a prove-it year for him, though.
Yeah.
Like, back it up. Otherwise, there could even be room for a nickel.
And then if you're doing that, then you just go one step further and throw inside linebacker in there.
Definitely.
Because literally, you don't know who's going to be on the team next year. So that is a big list.
It is a really big list.
So now,
then you throw running back in and say, again, first round, it's tough to justify, but Javante's gone. Samaje's gone. Jaleel turns out to be limited in what he can provide. Estime is limited in what he does.
Yeah.
And Blake Watson doesn't pan out. Then all of a sudden you're like, we could really use a starting running back.
This is a great conversation to have before training camp even starts, to show just like how much we're looking for in training camp, in preseason, in the regular season, to find out about this team. There are so many question marks, and there are a lot of question marks with every team in the NFL, but these big of question marks, and that's not even talking about the quarterback position like we talked about in the segment before. Yep. So it is just wild what this conversation is and how much there is to learn about this team. But since we've broken down this team, let's take this list and kind of look at it, how this draft projects. And obviously a lot of things are going to change, but just as much that's going to change is probably going to stay the same. Carson Beck is going to be talked about as a dude. Travis Hunter is going to be talked about as a dude and is going to be a dude in this draft. So let's look at the list we've built, where we think the Broncos are going to fall, and then what is the most likely pick for them in this draft. And is it as easy as just saying, okay, who's the top wide receiver on the board? Or is there some more nuance there, Hank?
Yeah, there's more to it than that. James Pierce Jr. is the best prospect in the draft. I don't even think that much debate about it, especially because there's no quarterback right now. Once you get to the draft, and all of a sudden it's like, how many quarterbacks go before a first position player? The question just is, will the Broncos have a shot at James Pierce Jr.? So he's an edge rusher from Tennessee, just prototypical size and speed and strength and all that sort of stuff.
Von Miller, 6'5", 240.
Oh, yeah. Had 10 sacks last year, which is an awesome number, especially for a guy who's only in his second college season. So he's should be a very heavy favorite to be the first position player off the board. And you could make the case that he's the most likely pick for the Broncos, because I guess I'll ask you, what do you think the odds are the Broncos are picking the first non-quarterback off the board?
According to Vegas, I don't think, but according to Vegas,
very high.
They have them as the number 3 pick.
Yep.
And you would think that the first 2 picks would probably be quarterbacks if those teams are that bad.
Exactly.
So, it is a shot.
So, you have him right there. A couple of tackles, Will Campbell from LSU, Kelvin Banks from Texas, are kind of the 2 big tackle prospects as of right now. Things will probably change, but it looks like a 2-man class. Then you throw in cornerback. Will Johnson first, who's just your prototypical boundary cornerback from Michigan. One of the best players on that defense, 6'2", 200 pounds. Like he's looking like one of those other just elite guys at a important position. And then Travis Hunter is kind of the other guy I think at the top of this class, who he's more of the question mark, not in terms of like the talent, but just in terms of like, first of all, is he a cornerback? Is he a receiver?
100%.
Does he wind up? He could be the best position player in this draft. He could also slip a little bit because where does he exactly fit in? But those to me are kind of those guys. And the tough part is that we talked about receiver a lot. The receivers this year maybe not quite as good as receivers last year, so you might be reaching a bit if Vegas is right and the Broncos are picking in the top 3 or the top 5 or whatever.
Right. Well, Henry, your analysis is just spot on. Walter Football, their latest 2025 mock draft, which is wild, have the Broncos taking James Pierce Jr. with the 8th pick.
Really?
Yeah.
So who goes in front?
They've got Shedeur Sanders going 1 to the Raiders. They've got Drew Aller from Penn State.
Oh, wow.
Going number 2 to the Titans.
Crazy.
Harold Perkins, an outside linebacker, edge rusher from LSU.
Can do anything.
Benjamin Morrison going to the Panthers, cornerback from Notre Dame at 4. Deion Walker, a defensive tackle from Kentucky, going to the Vikings at 5. Travis Hunter going to the Cardinals as a cornerback at 6. Mikael Williams, defensive end from Georgia, going to the Bears at 7. And then James Pierce Jr. going to the Broncos at 8. And I will say that's probably the lowest I see James Pierce Jr. On any mock drafts right now. So the people would more so agree with you that he's the top guy. But I think you also identified pretty much everyone else perfectly. And you know what, Henry? When you look at the Broncos' needs and where this draft is really good at, it's a pretty good draft for the Broncos.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think the Broncos are going to be set. Unfortunately, if they're drafting really, really high, I do think there's good quarterbacks there if they have to go the quarterback route. But if they don't, let's say they're 3 to 12, they're going to get a really good player at a position that they really need, because there's 2 or 3 really good cornerbacks. You mentioned Will Johnson. There's 2 or 3 really good tackles, like you said, with Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas and Will Campbell from LSU. And then did I say corners? There's actually, I think, even more than 2 or 3 good corners there. But the one that really stands out to me is Travis Hunter. In terms of if I were putting odds on who the Broncos would take right now, so far out, so many variables, it would be Travis Hunter as the favorite, because the Broncos need a playmaking wide receiver. You're not drafting Travis Hunter to be a 100% all-around receiver from day one. He's not Marvin Harrison Jr., where he just got the fundamentals. He's a tactician right when he enters the NFL. He would be very raw coming into the NFL as a wide receiver. So what would he be? He would be a playmaker. That's literally what he would be coming to the Broncos, as a playmaking wide receiver. Now, obviously, you wouldn't draft him with the top 10 pick with just the idea that he's going to be a playmaking receiver. You hope he could develop into being an all-around receiver, but he would instantly be that playmaking receiver for the Broncos. But then why also he would be number 1 is we talked about how there very well could be a first-round need for cornerback for the Broncos. Travis Hunter would fit that mold as well. So you literally get 2 positions of need at one. Now, would the Broncos use him at both positions? No, I don't think so. It's already very unique that CU is doing that. And clearly, I think they're right in what they're doing, but I don't think an NFL team would do that, or at least very sparingly. But that's why he would be the favorite, is he fits both. He fits 2 of the biggest needs.
Yeah, it's tough because he's probably much more valuable at corner than receiver, just given what he does. Like you said, receiver, he doesn't really have a lot of the technical skills. It's more so just you get the ball to him and something good generally happens. And that's why, at corner, he really is freaky. He's probably... I think Travis Hunter's a Hall of Fame corner. I think what a lot of people will say is he's an all-pro corner, he's a Pro Bowl receiver. And that's why if he is a top 5 pick, it's probably to play corner. if he's a top 10 pick, even if he slips a little bit, it's probably to play corner. And with that, I mean, you throw him on the field if you want a few plays a game at receiver, put him at kick returner, put him at punt returner, see what happens. So it's tough to say because while the Broncos have needs at cornerback and receiver potentially, and Travis Hunter could play either, his value is going to be higher at one than the other. And it seems like the value is going to be higher at corner. And that's why if somebody drafts him, when somebody drafts him, he's probably getting drafted for what the more value is. So it probably matches more with one or the other at the end of the day. But right now, I guess it could line up. It'll be interesting to see how that all goes because there are better receivers. I mean, you look at Luther Burden from Missouri, just a freaky athlete. You look at Tedero McMillan from Arizona, 6'5", 1,400 yards last year.
McMillan could be that dude.
Exactly. So if you're looking for a receiver, you probably go a different route. Now, that doesn't mean that Travis Hunter isn't one of the 5 best receivers in the draft. It just means that I think there's a better chance that he's one of the 3 best corners and 3 best receivers. And if Broncos are looking more at receiver and they're looking more at receiver and they're picking in the top 5 or 7 or whatever it is, I don't know. Like it's definitely a good match in a lot of ways. Is it the most likely match? That's what I'm not sure about.
Here's the thing about value, because I agree with you from a 300,000 foot perspective on the NFL. Corner is way more valuable than receiver, in my opinion. But
the league says differently.
That's exactly it.
Yep.
The league not only says differently, the league says it's not even close. The highest receiver in the NFL is getting paid $35 million a year. The highest paid corner is at $21 million. For positions that line up from across each other, that is wild. And it's not just like Justin Jefferson got the bag, and so he's offsets it. There's, I think, 6 players in the NFL that are non-quarterbacks that make $30 million or more a year. 4 of them are receivers. 4 are receivers. That is insane. And then you have this massive drop off to now the next highest paid corner the highest paid corner is at $21 million a year. Pat's going to reset that. Let's say it's 25. He's still $10 million behind the number 1 receiver in the NFL. So maybe a team, especially that has an offensive head coach, especially that needs firepower on their offensive side, especially one that's trying to help their young quarterback develop, and Bo Nix could be a team that says, Travis Hunter, you're an all-pro corner, you're a Pro Bowl receiver, we're going to make you a receiver to start off.
Or you just take Tedero McMillan, the all-pro receiver.
Could happen. So that's where I'm putting the odds for me right now. I think Travis Hunter's the most likely first pick for the Broncos in next year's draft. Where would you go?
Oh, I'll take James Pierce Jr. It's crazy to me they have him 8th, especially with some of those guys like they have Harold Perkins in front of him, who's like a fun player, but he's one of those guys who's like, is he an inside linebacker? Is he an outside linebacker? Does he wind up just being a tweener? Or, I mean, does he turn out to be Micah Parsons, who had those exact same concerns, but you just say like, nope, you're rushing the quarterback.
Don't beat yourself up over Walter Football, Henry, because
it's an interesting list.
Has James Pierce number 1 as well. I believe Tankathon has James Pierce number 1 as well. So they agree with you than not. Pro Football Focus has James Pierce Jr. number 1 among all positions. So don't get too.
That's how I justified saying like that's James Pierce Jr.
on your side. Right. Will he just be gone?
He probably will be.
Especially 6 quarterbacks were taken in the first 12 picks. If you're saying that the Broncos aren't going to draft a quarterback next year because they drafted one this year, there's 5 other teams in the NFL that could be bad, that were bad this past year to get a top 12 pick in this year's draft. If those teams get the number 1 overall pick, maybe they do just go with James Pierce Jr. instead of going quarterback back-to-back years.
That's why I'm just kind of banking on quarterbacks going early and somehow you get your hands on James Pierce Jr. But it's mostly because I think that I'm leaning on the sportsbook saying the Broncos are going to have like a top 4 or 5 pick. And I think James Pierce Jr., he's going to be the first non-quarterback off the board. And then after him, though, like it really could be Travis Hunter. It could be Will Campbell. It could be Will Johnson. It could be Harold Perkins. Like if he has a freaky year, Denzel Burke could get up there. I mentioned before I really like Colston Loveland, but it just seems like there's so much randomness afterward the safe bet probably is saying the Broncos pick 4th and 3 quarterbacks go first and they get the best edge rusher. I think that's most likely.
And I mean, George Payton says it all the time. You can never have enough edges, and we've seen the Broncos just continually invest in that position. This is a blast. I absolutely love it. I've really enjoyed the conversation, Henry. We've got a mailbag on the way later today, so podcast side, it'll be there. Also on YouTube, make sure to stay tuned for that, for a very fun conversation about offense and defense. We'll be back tomorrow with a double header. We've got 2 shows tomorrow, one at 11 a.m., one right after at 12:15 a.m., so make sure you're dialed into those, and if you miss them, of course, you can listen to them on the podcast side after, or just go to YouTube. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Hit us with a thumbs up on the way out, and we'll see you tomorrow, 11 a.m.
We all silly like the mayor.